G'day YouTubers, and welcome to the 5th episode in the Offshore Moreton series. Before I get into it, I'd just like to fill you in on a little bit of what's happening. Right at the moment I'm terrifically busy. I'm making some changes to the boat. I'm really excited about them. I'll eventually put up some videos on everything I've done and how I went about doing it. It's going to make a big change to the channel and the format of the videos, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot better and you'll get a lot more information out of the videos. So that's one thing. I'm not going to go into the details yet, but it's not far away now. The other thing is, a lot of people have asked about the FishTrax program that I've been using to display these marks. The original intention was to release it in Q3 of this year. I had thought I might have made it for Q2, but that's past now. We're already into Q3, but it's not far away now. It'll be released either late this month or early next month. I'll keep you posted on these videos. But in the meantime, the videos are going to be a little bit shorter and maybe a little bit less frequent because I'm just so busy on everything else. But when that's all over, things are going to be better, so just bear with it for a few weeks. Okay, that's the end of the announcements. Let's get on with the video. I mentioned in the last video that I was starting to get a bit confused about what marks I've shown and what I haven't. I'm pretty sure I have shown the marks that I've got the rectangles flashing around just here. So that leaves us with these marks that I haven't talked about yet, and that's what I'll be doing in this video. If it ends up a little bit shorter, it doesn't matter, we're going to cover the marks eventually anyway. Just means it takes a little bit longer, but on the other hand, the other stuff I'm working on is going to be well worth it. Before we start going through these marks, I'll just throw up this picture of the green zones, just so you know where the local green zones are in relation to the marks that I'm giving you. They're all well clear. At least the green zones as they exist at the time this video was made. To go through these marks in some sort of order, I am going to work west to east and south to north. So I'll divide them up into sections, and this is the first mark. The marks in this area with the red crosses all came off the internet. The other marks there are ones that I've actually been across and got some sonar scans on. As is the case with the majority of the marks that I have, these are area marks, not just pinpoint marks over a wreck or a reef. Some of them are that I've given you in the past, but these marks are general areas that you have to scan around and see where the fish are holding. You'll see that in a minute when I start showing you the sonar shots. I've got several of these marks called the 29s. They all came off the internet somewhere, and I've changed my mind about how I'm going to present this little area. I'm going to go through these internet marks first, and then I'm going to go through my marks with the screenshots, just to illustrate a few points about the area. This is the first of my marks. I took it on the 29th of August 2021, and I marked it because the bottom's a bit rough for one thing, but the main thing is that there's some fish down there holding on the bottom right on that mark. This is the sonar screenshot that I took at the time. As you can see, there are some fish holding there on the bottom. I'll just circle them and flash that circle just to help you identify them. If you're looking at this on a phone, it's going to be kind of hard to see. You really need lots of resolution, particularly on your sonar on the boat. You need the biggest and best resolution screen you can get, provided the transducer and everything's good enough to populate those pixels properly. But it really does help to see where the fish are holding. If you've got a tiny screen and a very low resolution screen, it's extremely hard to see fish, particularly in deeper water. Even on this screen, it's a 12-inch screen, it's a very high resolution screen, and you can see those marks are pretty small, and they're decent fish. I'm not saying you can't find fish on a smaller sounder, I'm just saying it's a lot harder. This next mark doesn't show any fish, but it does show some interesting bottom, which is worth going back and having another look at and a scan around the general area. In case you don't know, that white line that's along the bottom is supposed to be the actual bottom, the hard bottom line, and anything above that's supposed to be a fish. Well, it's not working quite that way. I guess they haven't quite got their software right to work that out, but it's still useful. As you can see in the picture, or at least I hope you can see, the red from the hard bottom bleeds up above the white line, and above that again is a fuzzy area. I'm not sure exactly what that is. It could be weed, it could be soft corals. I don't think it's hard corals. I think that would show a little bit stronger return. I could be wrong there. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to tell. Usually the hard corals that I know are hard corals show a little bit stronger return, but but it could be a heap of branching coral which doesn't show quite as strongly. In any event, I thought it was worth marking to come back and have another sweep around it, maybe next time or two I'm out here, and if I haven't seen any fish after that I'll wipe the mark. This is the same mark shown on the hummingbird sounder, and as you can see on the traditional side of the hummingbird, it's not telling me very much at all. But on the down imaging, I can see that there is something above the hard bottom. Again, I can't really tell what it is, but definitely something down there, and any anomaly like that is at least worth another look. I took this next mark again because of some unusual bottom structure. It looked as though it might be worth coming back and having another check around this area. There's all sorts of bottom structure in this entire area, so no one point is better than any other. They're all in the general area you should be scanning around looking to see where you can find the fish. And as you saw, we found some fish on that first mark I discussed. And once more on this sonar shot, we see that fuzziness above the hard bottom, which tells me that there's something there. My guess is some sort of soft coral or weed, and I'm leaning more towards the soft coral idea. And this is the last mark for this area, again taken because of the bottom structure, and the chance that there's some weed or soft coral or something down there to attract the fish in. It's just another mark to indicate to me that this area is worth coming back to and having another scan around, see if I can find some fish, as I did on that first mark. And again, these sounder shots show that there is something there above the hard bottom. Again, I think probably weed or soft coral. Anything like that's going to attract fish, and just worth having a scan around the general area, although these last two sonar shots for some reason aren't showing all that well. I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe I did a turn and cut across my wake or something like that, but there's a lot of interference in these shots. Still, the bottom return is good enough to tell that there's definitely something down there covering the bottom. There's only one of this next group of marks that came from the internet, but 3 of my marks don't have screenshots. I'm not sure why that is. I can see that one of them was from the hummingbird and 2 of them were from the Raymarine, and I just don't know why I didn't take screenshots with them. In any case, I'll give you the marks and talk about a couple of things on them as we go. This is the first one you've been looking at. I think this next mark's from the hummingbird, and looks like I might have spot locked on there for some reason. But I must have seen something that I thought was worth having a spot lock on and maybe a quick drop. Now this one's from the internet, and it's called Perlie Reef. This was the mark that got me interested in the area. I'm sure I would have been out here at some stage in my younger life when we didn't have GPS, or in this general area, but I didn't have any marks for it. I used this one from the internet as a starting point to do some searches and see what I could find. So just because a mark's off the internet, don't devalue it. It's always worth going and having a look and checking the area around it. And this one's the last mark without a screenshot. It was taken on the Raymarine. Again, don't know why I didn't keep the screenshot. The only thing I can think of is that the screenshot didn't come out all that well and I didn't bother to attach it to the waypoint. If I'd cut across my wake or something, that would make the screenshot pretty garbage. This next mark's from the Raymarine, and obviously I marked it because I saw fish on the bottom. Well, at least it'll be obvious once you look at the screenshot that I took from this. Just pause the video if you want to get the latitude and longitudes. And this is the screenshot I took of that mark. As you can see, there are fish holding along the bottom between 70 and 75 metres. They look very small, and I can't say they're huge because I'm not real good at telling how big fish are. There's so many factors involved in looking at fish on the sounder and telling their size. For one thing, if a fish is out on the edge of the cone of the sounder, it looks a lot smaller than one in the centre, but it may in fact be bigger. So the only way, once you see fish on the sounder, the only way I can tell is to drop a line down and see what I can catch. So that's the thing to do when you see fish like this on the sounder along the bottom. Got one shot from the 29 Fathom Reef in a video I put up quite a while ago, where I'm pretty sure I had a screenshot just like this with fish on the bottom. And I was pulling up fish from 45 to about 65 centimetres out of that group. Snapper and tuskies, as I recall. So as I say, you see fish on the bottom like this, drop your line and see what you can pull up. I took this next mark because I saw some fish on the bottom, and when we look at the screenshot from those fish, I think you'll find it quite interesting. In this screenshot you'll see that the fish are stacked up in a triangle shape, probably a cone shape if you get right down to it, but we're looking at it in 2 dimensions, and in 2 dimensions it appears to be a cone, so that's what I'm going to call it. When you see fish stacked up like that, in that cone shape, I'd be getting my paternoster rig ready and dropping it down in the hope of catching some Perlies. They have a tendency to stack up in that cone shape that we see here. When I'm fishing deep and I'm targeting fish on the bottom, I zoom right in on the bottom. Maybe the bottom 10 or 20 meters is what I want to focus on. That's what I'm doing there in the main area of the sonar where you see the cone shape. If you look to the area just to the right of that main area, where you can see the full water column, you'll see that there's what looks to be some bait fish holding between 20 and 40 meters. When you get out there, keep an eye out for that sort of thing. If you've got your sabiki rig with you, drop it down and see if you can pull up a bit of live bait. That's always worth having. And in that area again, at around 15 meters, there looks to be maybe 3 or 4 bigger fish just holding above the bait skill. That's why you should have a floater out while you're out there as well, because quite often if you've got a floater out up in the water column, you'll get a decent snapper. This next mark's from the Raymarine again, and I took this because it shows something growing on the bottom in my opinion. Looking at that area just above the white line, you can see the fuzzy nature of the return, and that appears to be something growing on the bottom. You'll notice also, just down along that white line, that there's some numbers. There's 176 and 378s. Now that's the Raymarine unit telling me that it thinks there's fish there at those depths. It thinks it's spotted 4 fish. I can't see them on the sounder. I really have a little bit of a problem believing some of the numbers that it throws up and says, yes, this is a fish here. But nevertheless, I leave it on because sometimes it does show fish, and it gives me their exact depth. And if I look at it and see the fish there and it's giving me the depth, it just makes it that much easier to target it. But the bottom line is that this screenshot is just about the growth on the ocean floor. Worth coming back to have a poke around again. If I don't see anything here after visiting it once or twice, I'll remove the mark, and I'd suggest you do the same. But until then, worth having a good look at. I took this screenshot on the Raymarine because I saw some bait on the screen. A lot of people don't look for bait when they're out deep fishing, but you'll often see it go under the bait if you keep your eye on the sounder. I never turn my sounder off when I'm out there because I just want to know what's happening around the bait, or at least under the bait. That's the important part. And as you can see in this screenshot, between 50 and 55 meters, there looks to be a school of bait fish passing right under the sounder. So you need to have your sabiki rig ready to go, and as soon as you see that on the sounder, you need to drop it. They're often small schools, so you have to have half an eye on the sounder and see them as soon as they start to appear. Otherwise, they're gone before you can get your rod down. And this is the final mark in this group, taken on the Raymarine, and when we look at the screenshot where I took this, we can see there's some fish on the bottom, but really they don't look big. And again, I've said that it's hard to tell the size on a sounder. I'm no good at it. I have to pull them up to know what size they really are, but this lot do look small. I'd have a drop there, but if I didn't catch anything fairly quickly, because there's quite a lot of fish there, if nothing jumped on the line fairly quickly, I'd call them bait stealers and move on. There's also what looks to be some bait up in the water column, about between 50 and 60 meters. And this whole area has a lot of interruptions in the signal, all those vertical blank spots in the signal, a lot of movement in the bottom. I'd say that the water was getting a bit rough when I took this screenshot, so it's not the best. And that could be why the fish look small. As I say, awfully hard to tell. But certainly were fish there, and where there's small fish, there's big fish, so it's definitely worth keeping this mark and having another look at it. I said at the beginning of the video that things might get cut down a little bit for a while, just while I've got all these jobs on, and I'm afraid I've run out of time here. I usually allocate 3 to 4 days for doing a video, but I've only got 2 days at the moment. I've run out of time. I've got to stop this video now. I didn't get through all the marks I'd planned to cover, but we'll cover them in the next video. I just don't have any more time. I've got to get on to some of these other jobs, or they're not going to get done. So thanks for taking the time to watch this. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope it helps you catch some fish out there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for some of the exciting changes that are happening right now. You'll find out more of them in the near future. Until then, good fishing.